Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and hey, we're here with part 2 of everything this week. That's due, not two. That's a different language, my friend. One and only Mr. Brian E. Roach. What's going on, man? Are you Hot Shots Part 2 type of guy?
Don't talk French to me. I don't want to hear it. I don't like that language.
No.
I spent 2 years of dealing with that language in high school, and all I did was shine lights off of my bald instructor's forehead with a mirror.
Hey, I had my teacher in high school for French. I had 3 years, by the way, because we were required 3 or 2 and 2, and I wasn't really going to double up on Spanish. Our foreign language teachers were all like quirky. That's the best way I could put it. And
It's a viable point.
They really were. This lady was also Greek, and I think Greek is a first language. So try teaching French when you don't speak 100%. But fluent enough English, but yeah, it was fun enough. And then I had to deal with that as well in college, which was a lot more of a serious type of endeavor because it would put you in this lab, and we were still dealing. Even I mean, I'm really not that old, but the technology was old enough that we were recording our tests on cassette tapes. And I think we even were like responsible with having to purchase those for said course. So it was kind of I strongly disliked it. Like high school, it didn't bother me, but taking like any of the foreign language classes in college were quite the uphill battle. And another dude that's sitting around here as we could jump like right into this. Another dude that may have been around for cassette tapes or, 8-tracks perhaps even. Tom Brady's finally gone. I think so. I think he's finally gone. Brian, you think he's finally gone? Is this it? Is he finally calling it quits? I mean, I like how the sports media, they kind of roasted him by saying Tom Brady retires for a second time. Which,
Yes, they did.
yeah, I think that was pretty good.
To answer your question, I will believe he's gone when the next football season starts and he's not playing somewhere. Now, that being said, my gut says he's done this time. He's got to not really have any great desire to start over again with some other team. Tampa Bay flat out wasn't very good with him. I think at some point you go, I got better things to do.
You know what? Does he though? I mean, this guy, for all intents and purposes, it looks like he risked.
What are you talking about? He's got to find a new woman.
I mean, that shouldn't be hard, even at his accelerated age, his old balls. If we were doing a Manscaped show here, he'll probably be okay with all the money he's made, even though he's taken quote discounts to stay with the teams that he's stayed with and whatnot. But I'm glad they roasted him for that reason, retiring a second time. Age 45, man. I mean, geez, who's the only guy left that probably plays older than that? Is like a George Blanda or something outside of like even kickers. Even kickers aren't lasting that long. I think Vinatieri was pretty close, and he was over the hill in his last season or two as they kept dragging him out there.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, but does he get the itch though? Is it like in the middle of the season, it's training camp's done with and he doesn't, maybe things aren't working out with his new fling. Does he get the itch to come back? Is there a team that has an injury? Does Josh McDaniels, his former OC, give him a text or a call on the bat phone, on the break glass in case of emergency, because they're probably moving away from Derek Carr for everything that we hear. And I don't know, but I will tell you this one thing. I'm glad he played one more season only for this in this one reason. And somebody will say just like the same way.
I bet you I know what it is.
Go for it. It'll be the same reason you said you didn't want to see the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
It's because I don't want him getting put into the Hall of Fame the same year as Ben is. Now he can't.
Or completely pushing Ben out of the picture which would be ridiculous because what they
Yes,
put
absolutely.
they would have to put 2 quarterbacks in, and Tom Brady kind of closes the chapter on a pretty select group of quarterbacks that were all playing in one period of time, including Ben, Drew Brees, Eli Manning. I'm going to forget somebody in this too. Drew Brees, Eli Manning.
Probably should include his brother
Yeah,
instead of him.
Peyton. No, there's one more. Well, there's one more in there, and it wasn't Joe Flacco.
Eli, I mean, he'll probably get in, but Eli really wasn't that great.
That's it. That's a pretty interesting topic of discussion in and of itself, is whether or not Eli, yeah, he wasn't really all that great, but when you win a couple rings.
We're going to do just a general football podcast now, start a new one, because I'm not talking about Eli Manning on this podcast.
No. That's not that's not my intent by mentioning it. But yeah, somebody will be like, hey, what about so-and-so? There were, Phillip Rivers. That's who we're missing. So it's kind of an era, and you could probably throw Rodgers in there after a year or two also. He was only drafted 1 year after Ben and Rivers and Manning, so he was a 2005. I wanted to say,
and he may be gone now too. There's a chance he retires this year.
Yeah, there really is. So, in saying that, I'm selfish. I don't care. I'll admit to it. I'll fess up. I do not want them to sharing the spotlight. So now Ben gets to share his own spotlight, which kind of leads to our next topic of discussion is still, we're rewinding a little bit with a quarterback centric show today. Okay. And just kind of talking about planning post Ben Roethlisberger. And people had been putting Ben 6 feet under for the better part of 5-6 years prior to us just talking about it right now. It seemed like it was every single topic, every other show that we had for a number of years. Every time we entered the NFL draft, it was, are the Steelers going to draft a quarterback? Are they going to sign this guy? Are they going to do this? And there's still some talk. We still got some talk kind of even with this year as to whether or not who's going to be the backup quarterback now. But I mean, geez, oh man, that's not a real big topic of discussion when you're just talking about a backup. Everybody wants their whole team to be full of all-stars and all-pros and Pro Bowl guys. And it doesn't work that way. So, I mean, I don't want to ever see the backup quarterback. So in that sense, I don't want to really care who the backup quarterback is. But I know all the him-hawing when it was like Landry Jones and then Bruce Gradkowski and then Michael Vick and all these guys got to play a couple games or whatever. And Mike Tomlin's shown he could win even with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges and God forbid, Mitch Trubisky with Art Rooney talking about him potentially coming back. But do you think the Steelers followed the right process? I don't want to get into the exact Kenny Pickett draft pick just yet, but just as the flow of, we talked about this many times before, if they drafted somebody, well, why didn't they take Lamar Jackson? Well, Lamar Jackson was never going to play ahead of Ben, and he would have been off the roster practically already. You know what I mean? So you think I think they took the proper path. They're lucky it worked out the way it did, but I still think they took the proper path in not just drafting a guy like Jordan Love was sitting there on the Packers bench for how long, and now you just gave a guy a raise up to $50 million a year last year, and now you're talking about gutting the entire team because you didn't get the results that you've had in the last previous 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, look, I mean, they took the guy that they liked at the point that they took him because he was still there. Quarterbacks had not flown off of the board during that last draft. So you're sitting at 20 and all of them are there. So they have their pick of guys. Now, if that draft plays out differently, right, and quarterbacks start flying off the board early on, do they draft a quarterback? I don't know. It's the confluence of events that just kind of all happened at the right time and place so that they got the guy they wanted to get at the point when they could get him. It's not how things usually pan out, right? You don't want to be drafting at 20 when you're looking for a quarterback. You want to be drafting top 10. And, that's just the way it normally flows. Last season was a freak of nature. I don't even know how far back you have to go in NFL drafts to not have a quarterback go off the board until 20.
or even further back.
Yeah.
Geno Smith, probably second round. What was that? Maybe EJ Manuel was the only guy who went about the same area, 16, 17. I'll actually look that up here in a second because I was going to look at all of the some of the previous drafts. We beat the dead horse on quarterbacks for various many years, and you hit the nail on the head as far as Kenny Pickett falling where he did. I mean, you go back and you look at, well, let's see. Eagles got the number 8 overall pick with the Dolphins receiving Byron Maxwell, Kiko Alonso, which may seem inconsequential now because this was 2016, the number 13 overall pick. And then they also made some wheeling and dealing with the Cleveland Browns on top of this because they had to move up to number 2. The Browns got number 8 overall, a 2016 third-round pick, a 2016 fourth-round pick, a 2017 first-round pick, and a 2018 second-round pick. And that's a lot of picks. That's almost looking like a mock draft insanity type situation, but this really happened. This is reality. And as we look ahead, let me see. The trade between the this was Rams and Lions, but the even here it was kind of like a salary dump, and you're trading around Matt Stafford. Jared Goff was pretty much in the same type of territory as these other guys, where you're trading multiple picks. Trey Lance is also in this kind of category. And did you hear about Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy needing Tommy John surgery. I mean, I know I was dumping on the guy saying, he's Mr. Irrelevant. He probably might not have a major future in the league. His teams get film on him and there's a full whatever, but he might have competed for this starting job with Trey Lance, who's done nothing. And cost the 49ers, let me see here, in order to move up to number 3 overall, they sent their 2021, 2022, and 2023 first-round picks and a 2022 compensatory third-round selection, which was pick 102 overall, in order to get Trey Lance, who was a guy, and I love my FCS football, but North Dakota State guy that didn't really play a whole lot even that particular year. He was drafted because of the COVID season in FCS. With the spring season, he missed an extra season of football in college for his development. He gets hurt here. They said they don't want Jimmy Garoppolo back. So the whole thing with Kenny falling here is to kind of just put into perspective not just what you're saying about the Steelers being lucky or fortunate that he was there at pick 20, but it's because it is because of pick 20. They didn't have to give up any picks. They didn't have to send any players. They didn't do anything but just sit there. And Kenny Pickett looks like he'll at least be an effective NFL quarterback. He might not be a future Hall of Famer. He might be the greatest of all time. They might move away from him 3-4 years down the road. But look at a guy like Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton at least put the Bengals into postseason contention. They won some division titles with him. I'm not saying I want Kenny Pickett to be Andy Dalton because I think Andy Dalton stunk.
Please no. Please no.
But still, Andy Dalton was a second-round pick. So when the Steelers aren't giving up all of this for just a gamble and a crapshoot for guys like Carson Wentz, now going to be on what? He's on his third team if he's going to even stick there with the Washington Commanders. And Jared Goff actually doing a little bit better because the Lions are tailoring their offense and everything to him. So I think the Steelers, they really did luck out in this whole grand scheme of things. I think it's a really, really kind of cool thing that we don't have to discuss, and we will discuss a little bit about this year, but they don't have to have those particular headaches to look forward to. They may have already gotten their guy. As far as a backup, somebody else is going to get cut somewhere, whether it's a Case Keenum or somebody on that type of spiel there, Brian. So as we kind of roll into this and kind of go forward, previous quarterback picks, and we've had a lot of fun with this over previous years.
By the way, I just did a quick look.
Okay.
EJ Manuel was the 16th overall pick in the draft.
Yikes, man. Yikes.
Okay. I could not find a draft I went back as far as 2001 where a quarterback was not picked in the top 10 or ahead of where Pickett was picked. I think that is a unicorn of an event.
Yeah, it really
Now,
it truly
I'll
is.
be honest, I barely looked. I mean, I browsed. So I didn't validate that everybody listed in this article that I found was definitely there, but the most of them, I don't think there's any doubt. And a lot of them, God, a slew of them were picked with the first pick, or people did exactly what you're talking about, gave up all kinds of crap to move up to get them high because that's their guy. And look, quarterback is an important position. And I know people are going to say this is a statement on the quarterbacks that were out in that particular draft. And maybe that's true, but it's also potentially a state of where the game has moved to and what people thought was more important that year, or just a flux of most everybody thought they had their quarterback. And we got lucky in the fact that the Steelers were like, we don't, and we like him, and we're taking him.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And I was even going back to last year at this time, there was still Dwayne Haskins, Mason Rudolph as potential. You're talking about post Ben planning. Dwayne Haskins was like a 16th or 17th overall pick too. When I go and pull up some of these lists, unfortunately, no longer with us. May he rest in peace. But this was another one where the Steelers were thinking reclamation project, much like a reclamation project with Mitch Trubisky, second overall pick in his quarterback class. Which class was that? That was 2017. That was the year before Baker Mayfield,
Right.
Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, Lamar Jackson, and now who's the other one that I'm trying to think of? Sam Darnold was the other one in that draft class. And what did I just name? 3 guys in the first round that are probably no longer NFL starting quarterbacks. Done 2023. So yeah, there's a number of these throughout the years, and I'm trying to I could go back as far as even last year where I was talking about avoiding a first round draft pick, and we were talking about whether or not this was a good draft class. Matt Corral, I'm sorry, Desmond Ridder was in the talks, Malik Willis, and you look back at this and who's going to be available at pick 20. The previous year before that, you had 5 quarterbacks taken in the top 15 picks. You had Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. How comfortable are you feeling about maybe Lawrence? Maybe Lawrence has turned a corner, better coach, a team that's spent a lot of money and had a lot of high picks. You might feel a little bit better about that, but what about the other guys? Like, I don't know, man. I mean, Fields is doing it with his legs, and we're Buckeyes fans. I know Mac Jones got the Patriots into the playoffs last year, and they were similar to the Steelers in like a game or so out.
That's more function of the defense that the Patriots had that year than it is of Doughboy.
I love when you call them that. And we were talking about teams that may have needed a quarterback in the same kind of essence as would they have gone after Kenny Pickett. Like Kenny Pickett was head and shoulders the guy to go after. The Texans might have needed a quarterback. The Panthers, Falcons, Seahawks. We're talking about the Commanders. Talking about the New Orleans Saints. Nobody pulled the trigger. Now I know the Falcons and the Panthers got guys like later on, like Sam Howell. They're already talking about being the guy next year, which could be scary unless they actually did get a real steal of a draft choice there. And I can't be positive that they did.
Right.
Yeah, and there's plenty more past first round picks. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, that worked out. Mitch Trubisky, not so much. Is Deshaun Watson now with another new team? Is he still got anything left in the tank? How about Paxton Lynch, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota and Winston 1 and 2 in their respective drafts? Blake Bortles, 3rd overall. Blake Bortles, the legend that is
Jamarcus Russell. Jamarcus Russell.
You know what? I have a very special. You know why I don't mention Jamarcus Russell? Jamarcus Russell was part of the previous CBA. And he got a bag of money based on his college experience, and that's what pissed off a lot of the veterans at this point and said, that money should be allocated more here in case you have another bust out like him. Now, bust out in the fact of, I don't know if this guy just didn't care about his legacy and just he got the money and that was it. I put in enough in college. I'm a millionaire. I don't care what my reputation is in the annals of the National Football League. And from that kind of viewpoint, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's fine with me. I'll take the money and run too. But yeah, he stunk. And the legend that has it with him, wasn't it like they gave him a VHS tape or a film tape or a DVD or something, and it was blank, and they asked him what was on it, and he lied about it and said, "Oh yeah, I watched the film."
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the legend it is, Jamarcus Russell. So that changed the game. So you're talking about at least 2012 or so, where I don't succumb to mentioning names before that because it was a whole different bottle of wax.
Well,
although
but the problem is it's still my point is keep going back, and every year somebody takes a flyer on a quarterback high every year. And yeah, you start to get back down, to really kind of Mark Malone, okay, to pull a Steelers name out of the hat. You start to get guys that are. You're just like, wow, that guy went that high. But that's the point. The position is so important, and it always has been, that it's such a rarity that the first quarterback would go that low.
Yeah, I have more names to add to this list beyond Blake Bortles. There was Johnny Manziel, Teddy Bridgewater, EJ Manuel, who we mentioned. Okay, Andrew Luck, top of the draft, pretty much like surefire. This is the guy you're taking, just like Lawrence. We're going to get to the other guy in a second. RG3, Ryan Tannehill, and Brandon Weeden. There are a boatload.
Oh, a name out of Cleveland lore, Brandon Weeden.
Yeah.
The savior. The savior.
He was older, he was like 26 years old when he came out of college. That's the only reason why I thought he might have been actually halfway decent, is thinking that was kind of the thought with Kenny starting right away, too. What was Kenny, 24?
Yeah, let me just tell you. Speaking as a man of age doesn't matter. You have to be good at what you do to begin with.
That's true, man. And I mean, he was another Oklahoma State Cowboy too, was he not, Brandon Weeden? Just like Mason Rudolph. He's in the long lineage of awesome quarterbacks to come out of Oklahoma State. Yeah, but you know what? He's still on the list. And I think that gets us all the way to like about 2012 or whatever. What'd you just do?
I scored. The can went in the can.
Hey, don't quit your day job, man.
2 points. I'm awesome. You got it.
Oh man, that's too good. And you've got starting quarterbacks in the league who were taken outside of the first round too. And it's not usually the best of track records, but you do have the Derek Carrs, the Dak Prescotts that fell, and just relying on that. I mean, Russell Wilson, who was one of my favorite guys up until he just stunk up the joint. And how about that? Sean Payton going there to the Broncos. But there's a team.
I don't want to talk about that.
There's a team right there. They signed Flacco, Keenum, after Keenum had that hot run with the Vikings. They tried drafting Paxton Lynch. They had Brock Osweiler, who left, came back. Just all sorts of bad since Peyton Manning. And I don't think they've been to in the playoffs since Peyton Manning retired, let alone win a playoff game. So there's a team with a real drought and a lot of problems. I mentioned Lynch, but also Drew Lock. Like, now we're starting to get into a position where, we can start to talk about guys that were drafted, say 2020 draft, 2019 draft, even 2018. We've already kind of glossed over a little bit. That was Lamar Jackson's class, but Kyler Murray at the top of this class in 2019, and now all the money he makes, you're not going to convince me that he's worth what he's got. And there's another team that they took a quarterback with Josh Rosen the year before and then canned their coach and their quarterback and went and got somebody else entirely. You've got Tua is not part of this class, but Tua is starting to edge into that, whether or not he's been was worth his draft value, so to speak. This is the draft that had Dwayne Haskins 15th overall when I'm talking about 2019. And that was it. I don't see another. Oh, Daniel Jones. There's another guy with the Giants. And it's kind of funny because we're mentioning like all the guys that are kind of like this class of guys that are left in their 40s, like Drew Brees and Big Ben and Tom Brady and both of the Manning brothers and stuff. And you think about, like, I was just like thinking the guys I grew up with, because somebody said, "Oh, my childhood's gone," and I was like, "Wow." Like, that makes me feel old, because my childhood, I would have been thinking about like Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, John Elway, Steve Young. You could throw some other names in that mix too that don't always get the same amount of love, like Rich Gannon, for example, Boomer Esiason. There was a lot of like pretty solid quarterbacks back then too, and you've got like a whole new regime. But over the course of the last decade, like none of this has been a sure thing. And even 2020, which, you know what, Brian, might as well, I'm going to rip off. I like to rip off the Band-Aid every now and then. We're going to jump into, because people talk about how fortunate and how the Bengals were, oh, look at how they turned everything around in one season. And it's like, yeah, had to suck. Everybody. I every time I'm on the radio or I watch something NFL Network and ESPN, up until they lose into Kansas City.
My butt.
Yeah, well, they turned it around. Look at them. They were like the worst team in the league 2-3 years ago. And it's like, okay, they had to completely tank. And Joe Burrow comes in, but before Joe Burrow, Andy Dalton gets hurt. And because Andy Dalton's hurt, Andy Dalton's eligible to come back, and they just sat his ass on the bench so they can make sure they were pretty much getting that top pick and getting Joe Burrow, which is a franchise changer. But when you take a guy number 1 overall, I don't think there's a whole lot of luck or good drafting. Oh, they drafted really well. Does it take a lot to draft well when you have the top overall pick and you have this guy just staring you in the face? You would draft poorly if you didn't pick him. And that would be the same thing if the Browns had passed on even, let's say, Baker Mayfield or even Sam Darnold, who were considered top of their class back then, and didn't take a quarterback at all with their first top overall pick, which was something that was floated around because they had more than one pick. And over the various many years they had moved out of picks, moved around, this, that, and the other thing. And could they have taken someone who was maybe their guy was later in the draft? You know what I mean? Is it really good drafting that you landed Burrow with your first pick and then he gets hurt and your team still sucks and you happen to be another top 10 pick and you take Jamar Chase? I don't think that's good drafting at all. I don't think that's a blueprint that anybody should be bragging about. Other teams or any team, even the Bengals, just resulting in being a contender just because they dumb lucked their way by sucking and getting top picks.
I will tell you that there's some truth to that, right? But you can also the flip side of that argument is going to be a lot of people have the top pick and blow it. Hello, Cleveland, and they consistently do that, right? Hello, Raiders. Over and over.
I'll give the Browns credit for one thing, and I'd said this before, and I'll say it again. That one year they had an opportunity. Do they take Myles Garrett or not? And they took Myles Garrett. I will give them credit for that one.
They made the right choice that year. Yeah, absolutely. But that's, I guess what I'm getting at is you can screw up the top pick. So to say, how can you, is it good? It still takes you to do your due diligence and make the right choice. Was Burrow guaranteed to be a success? Absolutely not. No one is, right? You hope, you base it on what you see, you do your scouting. So I don't want to take anything away from the fact that they did a nice job of making the picks that were there for them to make. But yes, you're absolutely right. What happens? They tank to get Joe Burrow, who everybody assumed was going to be really good. Then Burrow gets hurt and they happen to get a top 5 pick and they pick what everybody assumed would be the best wide receiver in that draft, who happened to play with Burrow in college, right? So you've got an instant chemistry. It's a combination of luck. It's a combination of doing what you should do in the time you're doing it. Like I don't want to poo-poo Cincinnati's ability to draft. They've gotten much better at what they're doing. They've made some good picks. They've made some good later round picks. I think that the new group that they have in there with, the coach and whatnot is doing a much better job than what was going on prior. But yeah, there's still an element of luck that goes along with it. And it wasn't 1 year and all of a sudden we're great.
No, and it was outlasting a lot of teams in the postseason too, and remaining healthy had a large part in this whole thing. Like, and I was talking about this, and we were looking, or I was kind of discussing. We could even start talking about like the 2020 draft, because now you've had 20, 21, and 22 seasons, 3 seasons behind you. Hopefully, within 2 more seasons, we can like effectively say as to whether or not Kenny Pickett is or isn't the guy, or whether you start to get cold feet on him and you start to think, well, should they go in a different direction? And that was, Joe Burrow's draft here with Chase Young. And the following year, you got to give him a little bit of credit with Jamar Chase, because everybody had them pegged to take like Penny Swell or offensive lineman. And you could argue they make the Super Bowl because they took Jamar Chase, or they lost the Super Bowl because they didn't have an offensive lineman to protect Joe Burrow, and he got tattooed as much as he got tattooed, and he's done well under pressure. Hey, look, you know what? We've said this. You and I aren't Burrow haters by any means, but
No,
I'm also gonna call out the Bengals organization for having been cheap, stingy, and making stupid moves like drafting John Ross in the past. That Jamar Chase pick looked like another one of those, almost like you mentioned the Raiders too. Al Davis, and just let me take the fastest wide receiver that's available and try and have this vertical game with Jeff George, whoever might be your gunslinger quarterback. But in this class with Burrow, you have Tua Tagovailoa, you have Justin Herbert, and then you have Jordan Love. First round pick, 26th overall, to the Green Bay Packers, who's for all intents and purposes hasn't played any meaningful football, and you don't know if he'll be any good. How good would you have felt if the Steelers would have done that? Let's say in 2017, they would have done that and didn't take TJ Watt. That would have been a huge, huge team building mistake.
Talking about, I got mad when they wasted a 3rd-round pick on Mason Rudolph.
That's true, and that's just because you're a hater. Mark Cabali is actually making a big. Cabali's making a big push, one of these Steelers beat writers for The Athletic, making a big push to re-sign Mason. I'm like, would Mason be crazy? I mean, he probably could have a job for life as a Steelers backup if he stays around.
He absolutely could. And I don't like
being out of the league. Yeah.
I don't hate that idea, depending on what he's willing to take. But if somebody's going to throw money at him, which often happens as a quarterback, right? To take a chance and say, well, Mason's had some starts. He was helpful to get them to an 8-8 season when Ben got hurt. And if he hadn't got hurt, maybe they would have been 9-7 and they might have won a playoff game. Who knows? I mean, he could sell it, right? And I'm not going to overpay to have him sit there, but I've said all along, Mason Rudolph is a good backup quarterback. He's not a starter, and I don't think he ever will be. But if somebody wants to pay him starter money, hey, good for you, Mason. I'm good with that.
That's a good question for you. And I haven't quite gotten into all of this yet as far as looking at who might be available in free agency. But would you rather have Mitch Trubisky or Mason Rudolph as your backup in 2023?
I'm going to, you're going to hate what I'm about to say. He couldn't beat out Mitch Trubisky. So I'm fine with Mitch if Mitch is there.
Well, I don't know if it's beat out.
I know you're going to argue it, but he couldn't beat Mitch Trubisky. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's a beat Mitch Trubisky. It's the same thing like people were saying with Duck at one time. And it's like, okay, Duck happened to come in. Duck still got benched for Mason. Mason had an opportunity to perhaps play what was that, Carolina Panthers game, like week 14, week 15 or whatever, whenever Kenny got knocked out by Roquan Smith.
Yeah.
But you've had a whole offseason where you've used or had Mitch Trubisky taking the starter, for lack of better terms. We've loosely used that term because there was a quarterback competition, but he was your number one. He played as your number one starting the first 3 games of the season, and had already relief pitched against the win against the Buccaneers, and then what was a terrible outing with the Ravens. And it left some doubt in your mind as to whether or not this is the guy you want as your backup. And I think that was more of a hesitancy of Mason hasn't played all year. Let's just go with the devil we certainly do know and work around that and try and secure a win versus just putting Mason
this
up
on
there.
you.
I know you are, and
I'm going to tell you.
It's fair, and it's fair.
It's that Mason's been there X number of years, and at the end, when Ben retired, you didn't go, oh, we're okay. We got Mason. Mason can ride it. We can ride with Mason until Kenny's ready. No, you went, no, that ain't going to work.
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about with all of these other picks, and even you might land a Carr or somebody or like a Dak Prescott in a later round. And a lot of people, that's the way we felt with the Steelers looking at Mason Rudolph. If you remember, the whole draft Twitter bullshit that goes around, can't call it anything else, especially right now. Like, when you have mock drafts and the playoffs haven't even gone, and you don't even know what the playoff seeding is yet. That's absolutely just, it's asinine. And I just won't deal with it. I won't entertain the thought of it whatsoever. So you could get somebody later. And a lot of people had a first round grade. They had Mason Rudolph going ahead of other people, even Lamar Jackson. They even had Lamar Jackson going to the Steelers. That's a guy maybe that you develop. Oh, okay, it didn't work out. Can you imagine if they would have blown like Jordan Love and they blow like a first round pick, or a Trey Lance and they blow a first round pick? These are kind of moves that set the franchises back by several years, because it takes that long to develop and see if the guy is the guy. And okay, so he wasn't the guy, and they ensured, okay, Trubisky, we still have Rudolph. They signed him for another year. They kept him there. It'd been interesting if Dwayne Haskins was still with us, if Dwayne Haskins would have made QB3 or not ahead of Mason. He wasn't any more athletic, I think, than Mason. A lot of people just think because, he's a black quarterback that he had some wheels on him. He wasn't. He was a pocket passer. So that Absolutely. Argument was always out, and they want a guy that can move around like Trubisky. But I think I would still feel more comfortable. I think Mason, he just has a propensity to make fewer mistakes. I think too many people look at him as like a Landry Jones, and that's never been entirely fair. But as you said earlier, is he just a backup quarterback in the league? That's absolutely a fair assessment too, and that's where he's at right now. I doubt he would get a chance. The only way he's getting a chance to start is if he's like on that Rams roster this past year where they have oodles and oodles of injuries, and he happens or Josh Dobbs for that matter. Imagine that. Yeah. Imagine you're Tennessee and you draft Malik Willis in the 3rd round thinking you've been given a gift, and then Josh Dobbs starts ahead. In fact, I think Josh Dobbs has a better chance of being a Steelers backup quarterback in 2023 even than some of these other names that we've mentioned too, just because he's had some experience and maybe he comes back home. You never know. So
unless Mitch really demands that he wants to go somewhere, and he may be willing to sit and ride his contract out, and be the backup.
Do you pay him? Do you pay him? That's $10 million, or do you save $8 million and only pay him something to be your backup, or do you pay like somebody like Mason $4 million? I'd much rather pay Mason $4 million. Or Jacoby Brissett or somebody $4 million. You could probably get Josh Dobbs
for pay Mitch 10. Yeah, I would. Yeah. I would rather pay somebody 4 than pay Mitch 10, because it opens up some space. But if you're not going to find that guy, that's going to play out however it plays out. The Steelers will do the right business moves as they do. The thing is, and like I said this last time around, I don't know what the hell's going to happen this year. I don't know. I don't know whether the new Andy and Omar team is going to do some crazy wheeling and dealing, as you said, in the back rooms. I don't know whether it's going to be business as usual for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or whether something different could happen. Ownership is basically the same, but ownership tends to let football people do football things. And this is a different group of football people. So I don't know what the hell they're going to do.
Yeah, and all fair points, but we know they're not going to have to do anything with a quarterback.
They do not.
Yeah, they're safe there. They don't have to blow another pick. They didn't wait like Carolina did and Houston and some of these other teams that now are going to be quarterback needy. And it's also it's fortunate and it's lucky for the Steelers that a bunch of these teams last year traded their first round picks anyway, and they weren't in a position to take a quarterback. So there were fewer teams that needed a quarterback, and now there's a lot of teams that once again need it when we're talking about this year's draft possibly being very quarterback rich and maybe even top heavy. How many you got there?
I don't know. I'm not talking about how many quarterbacks. I'm going to tell you this. This is just this for those folks who it's not really the 2%ers because we're not that deep yet, but it's getting closer to the 2%ers. The 8%ers are here now. For those who are looking
I'd hope there's more than 8% at the 18%, maybe.
I'm going to say this is a sneak preview of what mock draft and say. I said it to Joe. He never actually read it and responded to it. But
I was driving him 4 hours in my car.
I'm not blaming you. You could have done it later.
And he had like 80 80 trades in the first round. Like the screen capture was yay long. It was like the Dead Sea Scrolls or something.
Here's the scenario rules for you to ponder before I get to it. I will obtain picks 1 and picks 2 by trading everything away in the next 2 drafts, but I'm not allowed to use them. I have to move back. Okay. So that's the setup. The Steelers will have pick 1 and pick 2. They'll have them both, but they can't use them. They have to trade back, and that's how mock drafts insanity is going to play out this year.
I hear you, my friend. Let's look real quick at this year's draft class and how comfortable maybe we would have felt with. Okay, they pass on Kenny Pickett. The Steelers are not making the playoffs if they ride with Trubisky and or Mason Rudolph. I believe.
Oh God, if they ride with Trubisky or Mason Rudolph, they're not going to have a winning record.
And probably
they're going to have a top 10 pick.
But would you feel more comfortable with? I mean, are you going to get Bryce Young if you're picking 10th or 11th?
This team is not built for Bryce Young to be your quarterback.
Will Levis, does that make you feel any more comfortable? I feel like Will Levis is the next Josh Rosen. As far as I'm concerned.
I don't know who the hell that guy is.
Kentucky.
I mean, I do, but
Kentucky.
I don't know. That's like
SEC, man. It's the SEC. It's the SEC.
I don't care.
Plays
I don't care about
SEC.
that guy.
CJ Stroud.
I've told you I was a CJ Stroud fan before. If it's me, and I would have been all in on a stinking this year to pick CJ Stroud. 100%. Would I rather have CJ than Kenny? Yes, I would. Will I say the same thing in 3 years? I have no idea.
And that's how it always works, too. That's how it always works. And look how long it took Geno Smith to materialize. There's always that what if. People are like, what if this guy would have played? What if that guy would have played? And it's funny that they were saying it with Brock Purdy, whereas, that was my whole case with Mason Rudolph is like the what if. But when you don't have that sort of like that diagram that blows out all the corners of the circle or whatever. I don't know what they call that diagram, but it's all your measurables at the combine and your height and the size of your hand. The size of Kenny Pickett's hands is what terrified everybody, and it's Kenny Two Gloves, you know what I mean? And Burrow, it was just like, okay, we're taking Burrow regardless, but he had a knock on that too. And Kenny plays for Pitt. If Kenny Pickett put up those numbers for... Name one of these ACC, SEC, or maybe even a Big Ten school. Like if he would have put up those numbers for LSU, or Clemson, you don't think? I'd say Alabama too. I don't know how I feel about Alabama quarterbacks all the time. Kind of like Ohio State quarterbacks, to be completely honest. But give or take. So you got Jalen Hurts, but then you got Tua. So but I think that it would have been his draft pedigree would have been a lot higher than what it ended up being. Because he came out of Pitt, Pitt.
He was an older quarterback in relative terms than some of these other guys. So that there's a couple of things that we're going to knock him down, and the pedigree of the competition and the school he played for. Right, it wasn't a school that was competing for a national championship year in and year out.
Yeah, they won the ACC though. I mean, I had to count for something, but then again, you could say the same thing when you're looking at like a Big 12 quarterback too, and they talk about, well, that's all they do. There's no defense in the Big 12, and
you got to just accept there is a reasonable expectation that the Steelers had a ace in the hole by having this kid basically in their backyard for 4 years or however long he was there. Right? They knew Kenny Pickett better than they knew any other quarterback in that draft, without a doubt. And if they knew that they liked him and they knew that was their guy, if he was there, then great. I'm willing to, after seeing him this year and seeing that there is something there with this kid, right? I don't know whether it's going to translate long term. I don't know whether it's a 1-year flash, but he's got something. And so I'm perfectly content to ride with this. I also would have been perfectly content to not have them pick him and to pick CJ Stroud this year.
If they would have been high enough, I don't even know if top 5.
Don't guarantee that. What I wouldn't have been happy about is, let's say that they end up at like 8 or 9, and then they have to give up another first rounder to move up to 2, 3 to get seed. No, then I'm out.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at too, Brian. It's what will it take? A lot of people are They're looking at, will the Colts move up in order to make a move with like the Chicago Bears? Would the Bears move on from Justin Fields? Will they admit maybe was Fields a mistake? Was he overdrafted? There's all kind of questions like that. What does Houston do? Did they take a guy? I mean, the Colts are sitting there at 4. Seattle's at 5. Seattle
to be the Colts.
Oh, yeah.
And the Colts and the Texans are going to draft quarterbacks.
Yeah, they should.
End of my story. They are going to draft quarterbacks. I believe the Bears will trade out of that first pick, or they'll take Jalen Carter. One of the two things will happen, or maybe one of the edge guys. They'll either draft a high defensive guy, one of the guys who is just an absolute, almost no-brainer, even though there is really no true no-brainers in NFL drafting. Or
you're talking about like I don't even know, would you put like a Will Anderson in the same category as like a Clowney or a Garrett as number 1 overall? Possibly, or even going last year, but Trayvon Walker, Thibodeau,
Jalen Carter or Will Anderson are where I think the Bears will go if they're still there, right? Yeah. My expectation is that they will draft back, and somebody like the Colts or some other quarterback needy team will come up and take Bryce Young. I don't think CJ will be in play at 1, but I do think he'll be a top 10 pick. I think probably that whatever Levi Wallace guy that you were talking about.
No, not Levi Wallace. Will Levis, who's supposed
Levis Willis, whatever his name is. He'll probably go somewhere higher than he should.
But and a buddy of mine, that's because he got all the measurables and intangibles. And I understand maybe he was playing a little hurt or something like that. I watched him struggle against my alma mater, Youngstown State, in the game, and that wasn't very pretty. So I mean, that's not. But you look at who's in the pecking order of the draft. Okay, yes or no? Do they need a quarterback? Chicago Bears? No, not necessarily. Or you could even say maybe.
Maybe.
Texans.
I'll go with a maybe.
Yes. Texans? Yes.
Yes.
Cardinals? No.
No.
Colts? Yes.
Yes.
That's 2 yeses. Seahawks? Maybe.
Probably. But I don't think they go that direction. I think they'll ride another year with Geno.
Yeah, and I think that's completely fair. I think that's completely a safe thought, because if they completely suck, then they'll be in that top part of the draft again, and they could fill up a lot of different positions there. And, maybe they go defense themselves. Detroit Lions, yes, no. Jared Goff. Jared Goff's showing out, so I think they're fine.
They
I think they're comfortable. Right now. Their offense, et cetera, et cetera. They've got to go. Raiders. Yes. Probably. Yeah. Unless
Absolutely.
they sign somebody, and I don't know who's available to sign.
Don't even care. There's nobody to sign that's worth signing.
Yeah.
They need one.
Falcons.
Yes.
Panthers.
Yes.
More than likely, unless they're rolling with Howell. How many yeses is that? 5 or 6 in the top 10?
Yeah. And guess what? That's why mock draft insanity is going to be insane.
Because I didn't even get into Anthony Richardson, Tanner McKee, Hendon Hooker, Aiden O'Connell. Like, people are going to try and force, as they do every year, for one of these dudes to be like in the top 10, like the guy from Purdue here, Aiden O'Connell, and he's probably going to go like 5th or 6th round at best. If we might go undrafted altogether. So your quarterbacks are completely dried up by the time the Steelers are on the board this season. That's why the Kenny Pickett thing makes more sense at pick 20, because at pick 17 this year, you're going to have 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks completely fly off the rails. We didn't even talk about in the one draft that Jalen Hurts ended up going 2nd round, like pick 52 or whatever, but that's okay. We're almost up against it. I was reading some of Bob Labriola's Asked and Answered, and it's got the smart ass tone that it usually does have. And people were asking questions. One guy asked, what will he do this year for the Steelers? Are there any special plans for their 90th anniversary? He's like, yes, but you already missed it. It was last year. It's, you know what? And that's funny because, you can kind of see it right out of the corner here. I got the 90th thing sitting over there. So anyways, Brian, it was posed. The question was posed between Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger. Can you rank the Steelers quarterbacks in order of how you feel? The just order them. And I didn't give a specific number, but there were 4 only that really get or merit
any
mention, and one of them we can't.
One of them I can't talk about.
No, one of them we shall not name.
No, stop that.
We can picture.
Oh, my eyes.
We could show. We could show number 14. Rhymes with that, O'Connell. But that's one of them. There's Mark Malone. There was Cordell Stewart is another one. And that might be, I guess we could put Bubby in there. Maybe.
Bubby had a couple fun years.
But, yeah, because who else would you're not going to put Kent Graham in this list. You're not going to be able to put like Michael Vick for a couple games 1 year, or Landry Jones a handful, Rudolph Duck. I don't even think in that they're in that category of Mark Malone, who at least they got to an AFC title game with Mark Malone. And Mark Malone still had some guys to hand the ball off to and throw to and stuff before the wheels completely fell off the team. So I want me to give you mine first, or do you want to?
Sure, go for it.
You want me to go for it? I'll go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm feeling a little froggy. I think it's funny where Labs put these.
Well, and you going to show, or are you going to wait until after?
I will show. Give me a minute. I will end up pulling it up, but I'm going to have to go with, I think Cordell. Cordell gets my top out of the 4. And then I probably put...
not including Bradshaw and Roethlisberger.
No. Okay. It's just already assumed. I thought
it was a full ranking. Like, is Ben better than Terry or Terry better than Ben? And then the rest of them. Okay, now I understand a little better.
No, just these 4. Just
I
these 4.
should have had to read the thing.
Yeah, well, I assume you're usually on top of these things, man. So, yeah. And it was, and people were asking about statistics and stuff between, like, how does Kenny compare to, Ben or anybody else? And that's another time for another day or whatever. I don't feel like getting into that. But between these 4, I think I put Cordell first. Then it gets really difficult. Neil, the Super Bowl kills Neil. Otherwise, Neil was actually effective for the most part. He was more a game manager, like a Trent Dilfer type. He could have lucked his way into a Super Bowl ring or trophy. He left on bad terms. Do you do that kind of, like, does that factor into this whole thing? I guess I would put, I didn't actually look. I didn't read the whole answer actually by Labs, except that I noticed that one guy wasn't number 1. So, but Cordell's my number 1. And I guess I would go maybe Malone, Neal, and then Brister. It's really hard for me to say there, because at least in O'Donnell's era, they made playoff games. They won playoff games. They nearly won a Super Bowl. They were in Super Bowl 30. So, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm curious to see what you think.
All right. First of all, damn you for cursing us this year by mentioning he who shall not be named multiple times by name. We're screwed. Something terrible is going to happen. I feel defeated and doomed already.
Wait. The way we cleanse ourselves of that is we show a photo of Cordell Stewart. We get Slash in there, and then all is absolved. I think the football gods will look upon us more favorably by expunging.
We have a bad year. It's your fault. Okay. This is how I actually agree with you. I'd put Cordell first. Cordell wasn't the best, but he was exciting. I think if Cowher had the moxie to use him earlier at what he was doing, maybe he grows faster than he did. But I mean, he had ups and downs. He was never going to be the guy long term, but he was exciting. I'm putting Cordell first as well. It's not a hard argument for me to be putting he who shall not be named third, because honestly, or second, because honestly, he probably deserves to be there. But I'm not naming his
Was that like
name.
Going to the dentist where they say we're going to remove your back teeth?
This is like I
using a horse and carriage to pull.
I'm holding back what's coming up by having to say that. Okay. And then there you go. Hey,
Tom Brady's going to leave
really going to make me throw up.
Yes. I'm just, if I could find only like one more thing that would really get under your skin, maybe I'll just mention the taint again. We're in the taint of the football season. So we're not quite there with the Super Bowl's the biggest thing. So you're rounding the corner though.
Yeah. Then I don't know. I don't know whether I would put Mark Malone above Bubby Brister or not, I guess I kind of have to. He played longer, I think, overall. I'd have to look back and see. He did have that title game. And Bubby was just fun, but he was never good.
Yeah, Bubby took the brunt of most of my early football watching years.
Bubby was a better version of Duck Hodges.
You know what? That's actually a really I gotta bring up some Bubby stats. What was Bubby like? 7 years in the Berg, and Bubby Brister. Let's see. He had 61 games, 57 of them starting, 28-29 as a starter, 52.5% completion percentage during his time with the Steelers. Not really like lifetime. He was 54.6. He did just a little bit better. He had stints with the Eagles next year with the Jets that I solidly remember because that was like really the last year he really got some starts. And I think he ended up in Denver just by virtue of somebody else getting hurt, or I forget what the situation was there. But he had a very long career in the NFL. He played 13 seasons, so I mean it's not nothing to see. 14 seasons, I'm sorry, but he only he threw for over 10,000 yards, 51 touchdowns to 57 picks. So that's those aren't numbers to write home about, but
what do you call it? Those are journeyman numbers. Those are a backup quarterback who is forced to start's numbers.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. And I was going to bring up good old Mark Malone in this. Yeah, come on. There's too many Marks in the NFL. As soon as I say I put in Mark, that's like, oh, do you want to talk about Mark? Whoever, Mark. Just as long as it's not.
And
Mark
then you
Madden,
say Mark
okay.
Ma, and I all I think about is the other guy who has two S's in his name.
So I guess
it's me.
I guess Malone, 21-24. He's barely a 500 quarterback too. 46 starts, 8,582 yards, 54 touchdowns, 68 interceptions. Maybe I should have looked at this.
Maybe I'll have to move Bubby up. I don't know. Maybe Malone is. I remember being like, oh my God, Mark Malone is so bad.
I remember that about Bubby too, so I don't have maybe as much of the bad memory with Mark.
Bubby had a little. I'm reversing. I'm putting Bubby at 3 and Mark at 4.
Okay, all right. He who shall not be named, and I'm not going to name him anymore.
Good, please don't do it anymore.
No,
curses for multiple years.
I won't do it, but let's see. I'm going to pull up his.
I'm assuming Bobby made him number 1.
Well, hold on a second. We'll get there. So 39-22. So he had a winning record, 12,867 yards, 68 touchdowns, and 39 interceptions his time with Pittsburgh. So perhaps we're not giving the due credit that we should because do you Super
remember
Bowl 30 and losing to Stan Humphries the year before and the 94 AFC title game to the San Diego Chargers, who were like 8-0 to start that season anyway. They weren't necessarily slouches, but it'll forever stick in defensive-minded quarterback or coach Bill Cowher's craw that they lost to that Chargers team and Stan Humphries.
Yes. Let me just remember several years ago when I did the top, like everybody, like the Mount Rushmore of all Pete positions.
Oh, we've done that
the website.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore.
This is like 5 years ago now when I wrote those. When I actually used to write articles for the website.
I don't remember a time when that ever happened. Were you under a pen name?
No, you're wrong. You're lying. You remember.
I appreciate your former contributions and efforts there, Brian.
I did the Mount Rushmore of positions, right? And he who shall not be named at that point in time was number 3 on that Mount Rushmore. Not because I was happy about it, but because, look, based on what his productivity was, he was probably of the era the 3rd best of the group. Mm-hmm. And I'm putting Cordell above it because I like Cordell better.
Yeah, I like Cordell. Cordell revolutionized. Cordell in a different era, like today's day and age, would just absolutely kill it. Cordell also kind of has the stigma of not showing up in the big games, like throwing 3 picks against the Patriots. The advent of Tom Brady and this, that, and the other thing just kind of threw him aside. He made it to the Pro Bowl. His career is an interesting career numbers as well. We pull him up with the Steelers. He had 80 starts, 46-29, 56.5%. Yet another guy who wasn't at 60%. Like all of these guys were not at 60. They were not 60% completion guys. Was Neil? Let me look. I'm pulling Neil back up. No, Neil was underneath too, 57.1. So we go back to Cordell, 70 touchdowns to 72 interceptions. But I'm sure he didn't take a whole lot of sacks. He was a mobile guy, and it's kind of interesting. So let me bring up. Oh man, you know what? I totally lost. I got to find Bob Laboriola's article.
Bobby's article?
Yeah, I had it up. Give me a second again to just get it loaded up here and find where this was asked. So somebody had asked him, how would you rank the 4 quarterbacks drafted between Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger, who started at least 3 seasons? So there's the kicker there, because there might be somebody in between there. Well, there definitely is somebody in between there that shouldn't be mentioned. And Lab says he would rank them Brister, Stewart, Mark Malone, and then Neil O'Donnell. So Brister's first because he wanted to win more than he cared about statistics. My suspicion is that attitude would have served the Steelers well in both a 94 AFC Championship game loss to San Diego and in Super Bowl 30 loss to Dallas. I swear to God, I didn't read this beforehand. Like those just, that's embedded and burned into your brain if you were alive to live that specific era.
There's no question about it. Yeah. I watched that Super Bowl sitting next to a Cowboy fan who was a friend of mine. I know, just to prove that I can be friends with almost anyone. That, and even he looked at me and went, I almost feel bad because you guys should have won this game. This
right here is my house divided sign. Browns Steelers is proof that I could be friends and unfortunately also family with some people that don't think in lockstep with me. Unfortunately, it'd be a hell of a lot easier if they were Steelers fans. So then I have more people to party and tailgate and go to games with. But anyways, Stewart second because he was a dynamic two-way quarterback in an era when offensive coordinators wanted to turn those guys into pocket passers. Malone's third because in his only season where he had a pair of dynamic receivers, this was a rookie season for Lewis Lips and a still spry 32-year-old John Stallworth. Threw 16 touchdown passes, led the NFL with, I didn't know this, 14.5-yard average per completion on the way to an AFC Championship game where he passed for 312 yards and 3 touchdowns in a shootout loss to Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins. That puts Neil fourth because, he posted a 39-22 record with the Pittsburgh Steelers. As a regular season starter, he was 3-4 in 7 starts in the playoffs. The 95 Steelers had a great defense and enough offense to complement it, but in 3 games that postseason, O'Donnell threw for 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a rating of 61.6. It shouldn't be necessary to point out at this point that those are my own highly subjective rankings. So as the cool kids say, don't at me. Does he have a Twitter? I'm going to add him and tell him
I don't know if I've ever seen a tweet from Bob Labriola, to be honest with you.
I'm here with you on the same. So, folks, 2%ers that might be left or whoever may have still listened, be curious to hear your comments. I don't know. Let me rethink that now. Yeah, I don't think Bubby gets enough love. I put Bubby last, even behind Malone. Maybe Malone should be last. Cordell's still my one.
Malone probably should be last. Didn't I switch that? Didn't I put Bubby above Malone? Didn't I rethink it?
You were rethinking something, so I was just kind of reiterating my position now. I think I'm going with Cordell 1.
I still am going Cordell, he who shall not be named, Bubby, and Malone.
I'm in agreement with that. 2 thumbs up.
I mean, Bubby may have had a better desire to win, and like I said, he was fun and he was a guy you liked, but he wasn't good.
Yeah, and unfortunately, at that same time, that's an era where the Steelers still finished behind the Cleveland Browns and hasn't happened since Bubby Brister's left. A good 33 and ongoing years of not being in the basement of the AFC
our
Central
resident
North.
Browns fan will then put Bubby 1, right?
Yeah, well, Bubby would probably be his favorite. Now you go and rank all the guys that have. Do they even have guys that started at least 3 seasons in Cleveland since Kozar? Maybe Testaverde?
And you just hit me low now. You just
Eric
hit me low.
Man, I mean, you can
pull
pull
that guy from Notre Dame.
DeShone Kizer.
No, not that one. The earlier one.
Not that one.
the one that we beat in a bowl game with Ohio State.
I mean, you're going to have to go back like they do to like when men were off at war and they were winning championships. You're going to be talking about like guys like Otto Graham.
I can't talk about that. I'm not that damn old.
Brian Sipe or something. They're going to have to bring up some names like that.
I can't remember that guy's name. He was the flavor of the week when he got drafted.
Why can't I usually I'm pretty good with my trivia or knowledge of some of these things, and I'm drawing a I know who it is now. Brady Quinn.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
AJ Hawk and the Ohio State defense did not make Brady Quinn a happy man.
Let me tell you, I talk about one of my best friends. His nickname's Double E. He won't be watching this show because he's a tried and true Browns fan. He's a football nut. He'll probably go. They're having some of these games in Canton again, USFL. He was at the World Series of football when it was at the Hall of Fame. Very good friend of mine. We talk football. He's not a big Kenny Pickett fan. He said Kenny Pickett's ceiling's Case Keenum. Seldom is he wrong about some of these things. Like he really wanted Derek Carr a few years ago when the Browns were drafting. He hated Whedon, but the one guy he absolutely miserably dumped on, and he wanted Josh Allen too. I'll give him credit for that. And when we talk football, he hated, and I mean hated, Brady Quinn. He said, no way. And I will never forget that for the life of me. He was all out on Brady Quinn. Now I
laughed my butt off when they drafted Brady Quinn.
Yeah, I feel somewhat insulted of his comments towards Kenny Pickett, and I don't think that's necessarily a fair. He's giving him a fair shake. He's got a little bit of the bias goggles on too, and he refuses to comment about Watson whatsoever at this point. Like Mayfield,
that's a wise choice.
Liked Mayfield better than most of the other field. Wanted Allen, and he hated the guys before it, like Manziel and et cetera, Kaiser, and just. Keep going. Whedon. We only named like most of the first rounders. We didn't get into some of the other Jason Campbell and some of these other guys that ended up playing there at one point. Brian Hoyer, Colt McCoy. So yeah, Steelers could have it much worse. Did the Steelers dodge a bullet by drafting Kenny Pickett last season? I think this episode completely contained our answer to that. Brian, my friend, thank you for joining us once again. It's always fun doing the off-season shows. Stay tuned. Same bat time, same bat channel next week, right?
Absolutely. We will we'll get the draft. Well, not next week. I'm gonna be in Nashville. So I'm out next week. I'm gonna be in Nashville.
Man, if I wasn't already traveling, I'd go meet you down there. I need to get down to Music City, man. That's a trip that got canceled due to COVID.
Look, I gotta tell you a little story. All right, so
you're going to the honky tonk. The honky tonk.
For the 2%ers. Look, here's a little story. At where I do my work, I was asked to lead a group, and I was given options like, can you go bowling? Do you want to go ice skating? I can't bowl because I got a bad shoulder. Ice skating, I just fall down. I'm not doing that. Do you want to do something else outside? Sure, I'll go hiking. I'll do a lot of other things. Do you want to go to an arcade? Sure, I'll do that. Or do you want to go on a tour? Now, a tour, I said, sure, I'll do what you want me to do. You want me to take people on a tour? I'll take them on a tour. So I get an email from work, and they said, okay, you are taking everyone in your group to the Country Music Hall of Fame. And I said, why do you hate me? Why do you? I said, look at me. Am I a country music guy? Is this a country music guy? Like, I hate country music more than I hate death.
Wow.
Are you kidding me? And they're like, oh, we didn't know that. I'm like, I do product demos of the software that I work that have Shinedown as the damn soundtrack. I'm like, come on. I am not a country music guy. And so they're like, well, I'm like, I'm a team player. Do what you want me to do. But, this hurts me. It hurts me that you did this to me. But whatever.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a leader of men right there, and women. It's a leadership position right there. If you had a little bit more stroke, you could have just went and gave your middle fingers again up in Cleveland to First Energy when you were already up there to see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Explain that to me. And I'm not the biggest country music guy, but you've got like, and nothing against it, they deserve awards. Like, let's say NWA or somebody like that. You've got rappers that are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm like,
well, shoot, man, they put Dolly Parton in this year.
I know. I was going to mention her
Whatever.
second there too, and it's kind of like almost just like a music Hall of Fame, but then you also have a country music Hall of Fame. So you're not going to see like Snoop Dogg in the country music Hall of Fame, but you could very well see what's his name, Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish. I don't think they're a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame worthy, but he's somebody that would actually be in both kind of fields there, or somebody like that, or. I don't know. Could you throw somebody else in there, like a Billy Ray Cyrus, maybe, or because he did a little popish type stuff? Yeah, well,
achy breaky my ass.
No, that's not even his worst. His worst contribution to the world is probably Miley. But yeah. So, folks, on that note, as we're going to be yanked off the air by C&Ds, Brian, enjoy yourself as best you can, though. Like, I had Nashville and Denver both canceled during the COVID year. Those are both on my bucket list. I'll get there. If I got to St. Louis, so I do a lot of traveling, and I'll have another trip, hopefully, to warmer.
I'm gonna get me some hot chicken. That's what I'm gonna do. Give me some hot chicken while I'm there.
Nashville hot. You know, we were still talking about that as to whether or not does Cleveland actually have like a delicacy. Like, we're talking about the rest of the AFC North. You got like crab cakes, and you go to Maryland.
Lake Erie fish.
Yeah, I don't know. They were talking about the Polish boy, which is not the same as a po' boy. And I'm just like, you know, I've been to Cleveland many times, and I've dated people, and I've practically lived in Cleveland at periods of time of my life, staying up there. And that was just something that's eluded me over the years. Like, I knew about the panini sandwiches and stuff, which is basically just. Did
I tell you this story? There's another story for the 2%ers. I'll tell you this story.
One more.
So I've left college and I'm looking for a job. Right. I get an interview in Cleveland. I'm living in Dayton at the time. I drive up to Cleveland, do the interview. They're like, walk around the city, see what you think. And I get out, I walk around downtown Cleveland for a little while. I walk back, they're like, we'd like to offer you the job. I went, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm out. Like, I ain't living here. The hell with this.
Yeah, I was just telling somebody myself in my own personal, real life work environment, just about like Cleveland and like affect snow, and you just don't want any part of it. It's a whole different world when you're up in the northeastern part of Ohio, and same thing when you're getting up into Erie. And somebody's like, "Why don't you like Erie?" I'm like, "There's nothing against Erie other than the snow. It's basically Buffalo Junior." Like,
I will say, despite my salute to First Energy Stadium, or whatever the hell it's called,
Factory of Sadness. It's officially the Factory of Sadness.
Yeah, I officially found Cleveland much more appealing now than it was back in the day. I mean, we're talking about the river on fire years. So,
Cuyahoga,
you know, yeah,
got out of control. I hear the river. Yeah. What the hell do you live where a river catches fire? Just another, like,
it's not good.
You know what I've called? You know what I've called Cleveland? People might find this funny. I don't intend to actually mean it, but for the longest time, I've called it the Baghdad, Iraq of the United States. But Cleveland, really, from saying that, they turned a lot of things around. They got a lot of nice stuff going on there.
Much nicer place. If I had that interview today, I still couldn't live there because I can't. But
I hear you. But ever since they built the arena and the ballpark, yeah, when they built the new ballpark, which was Jacobs Field, now Progressive, and the what is it now? Rocket Loans Mortgage was the Gund Arena years ago. Richfield Coliseum wasn't downtown. That helped like revitalize that downtown area, so that was kind of nice. But still, there isn't anything I think about like, oh, I'm going to Chicago. You know what I mean? Like, you get a Chicago dog, or you go to New York, or you go to Philly.
Pizza.
Yeah, Chicago pizza, New York pizza, Philly cheesesteak, St. Louis barbecue, or Kansas City barbecue, or St. Louis toasted ravioli, or get a po' boy if you're down in Louisiana.
Never heard about no toasted ravioli.
Yeah. Oh, toasted ravioli is the shizzle, man. You've got to check that out too.
I'm not going to St. Louis. The hell with that.
You can find it somewhere. You could probably find it somewhere else. But I digress. We're up against it, folks. Hey, I wouldn't mind hearing about some folks' culinary preferences there. There's a lot of stuff around. And
Charles, tell us what the hell the food from Cleveland is.
Yeah.
Okay, Charles, please.
Don't lie to us. Don't say it's the Polish boy. Because you know why? I'm a Polish boy. That's why I don't buy it. I would have seen that and I would have been like, nah, 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 nah. It's like this concoction with kibasi and whatever. And I'm like, that doesn't sound unique to Cleveland. That's the kind of food I would like to try. And I don't ever remember going. The thing I like to do in Cleveland is the Winking Lizard Tavern. And even that, I think they closed the one that was downtown. So that's kind of a little heartbreaking, but I digress. We've been well on up against it. If you have listened this far, thank you for supporting Steel City Underground. My name's Joe Kuzma. His name is Brian E. Roach. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or send us your hate mail. That also works as well. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.